Okay, so my name is Matt Lee. I'm studying radiology this year. So my quote is by Michael York. He said, "I think that you have to believe in your destiny, that you will succeed. You'll meet a lot of rejection, and it's not always a straight path. There will be detours, so enjoy the view." I think this quote really describes how our path in ISM is going to go. We believe that we can do what we're going to do, and we're going to meet a lot of rejection, and things are not always going to go our way. But ISM is just about getting the experience and the connections and seeing what we will be doing. So for research, I did 6 research assessments. My first research assessment was about the CAN-MEDS for the radiologist. So CAN-MEDS were basically the core values that radiologists need to have, specifically an interventional radiologist. An interventional radiologist does procedures like drainages and small, minimally invasive procedures under scans, but it's like a fluoroscopy, which is like a video scan, so you can see a live X-ray video, basically. So this article really set the basis for what a radiologist is, specifically an interventional radiologist. So I saw all of these traits in the people that I interviewed, and they were really professional. And the traits that apply to the radiologist not only apply to interventional radiology, but all of radiology and all of physicians. All physicians should be professional, be health advocates, have good communication skills, and other professional traits. My next research assessment was on computed tomography or CT scans, and the errors that can be, the types of errors that can be presented through the studies. So 2 types of errors were cognitive and perceptual. Perceptual errors occur when a radiologist sees something that is not actually there, is not actually abnormal, or doesn't see something that's abnormal and thinks it's normal. Cognitive errors occur when a radiologist sees something and recognizes it as abnormal, but then misdiagnoses it. Latent errors occur between communication, between other physicians and the radiologist, so treatment might not go well, and the treatment might be delayed. So in this article, I learned that a high percentage of deaths from radiology actually occur because of latent errors. So my original work proposal, I wanted to eliminate a lot of latent errors so that we can minimize the percentage of deaths from the unnecessary errors in communication and organization between physicians. Next, I had an interview at children's hospitals, so I wanted to study ultrasounds, and I learned that ultrasounds are not actually that safe, especially because today a lot of people, they go to malls apparently, and they have shops where you can get videos of your baby, and it's actually not safe because the waves heat up the fetus and it can cause growth defects. And one of the strange things I found was it can cause left-handedness, but in males only. So as a radiologist, you need to have responsibility and only use equipment when necessary, because especially in radiology, some of the rays and the types of radiation are dangerous when you overuse them. Next, I studied telemedicine. I thought this was really interesting and one of the biggest aspects of radiology, because as you can see right there, that's actually what the reading rooms in children's hospital look like. So the radiologists are in a dark room staring at computer screens and evaluating the scans, and they use the technology system that can share with all the hospitals in the area. It's called PACS. So the pros and cons of telemedicine. Telemedicine allows you to be really versatile and flexible, and you can go between hospitals and look at a study from another hospital. And it can also be used in nursing, but one of the cons was that in nursing, I don't think that you can evaluate someone very well through video. And so telemedicine has its pros and cons. And actually someone I interviewed said they didn't like the fact that you could work at home using telemedicine because you can't really fix something from a scan. If you're actually in the hospital, you can go into the room and say, no, I need this done a different way. It's not the optimal view. So next I studied about Marie Curie in the laboratory and on the battlefield. This actually really inspired me to do research, but then I learned that she died from her research, so I didn't want to do research. So the research aspect in radiology is really interesting because it's dangerous and it's kind of on the edge. Some of the obstacles, though, are obviously the dangers of the rays and the different types of radiation. And so I also saw that she didn't get a lot of recognition for her work, and she didn't have a lot of funds, even though she discovered a lot of really important stuff. And the growth over the years, actually, we knew almost nothing about radioactivity when she first started, and then during her lifetime, we used X-rays. So it showed the growth in radiology and how great radiology can progress in such little years. Next, I learned about the communication. So I elaborated on the latent errors earlier and wanted to find out a better way to communicate. So this article was about a radiologist communicating with the patient that they had a miscarriage after an ultrasound. And so I learned that you need to be tactful and you need to have word choices that are better. So instead of saying the placenta or the fetus, you say the baby, and there's a lot of word choice that goes into play, and it's really important that you use the right word choice in order to minimize the impact on the patient. And there's also a template for success in communication. You have to be very professional, so that's another thing in ISM that I've learned how to do. And for my interviews, I had 5 interviews. First one was with Dr. Powell. He actually has mentored someone that went to Frisco. What I learned from him was to not major in biology. He majored in biology and he regrets it because at a certain point in his life, he didn't feel like he was getting by on radiology, and it would have been a nice safety net if he had a teaching certificate or something like that. His patient interaction was his favorite part about the job, even though it was minimal. But because it was minimal, it made it so much more special. And the worst part about his job was he hated being on call. Everyone associated with UT Southwestern and Children's that are radiologists work every 5th day on call, which means that they work at night instead of in the day. And that was his least favorite part because he couldn't be with his family. Ed Pong, this was kind of a warning to me because he joined a group practice and he regretted doing it a lot because there was very little time for him and he didn't have a good work and home balance, and so he actually didn't even have enough time to give an hour a week. And the special thing about him, though, was he was an interventional radiologist. Like I mentioned earlier, he would do procedures under fluoroscopies or guided procedures. The next person I interviewed was Dr. Kwan. She really inspired me because she is the residency admittance director for Children's, and she said that radiology is what you want it to be. You can make it what you want it to be. So when I asked her about telemedicine, she said, "Oh, it's not a good idea to work at home because you get a much better experience working in the hospital, and you can have patient interaction, and you can ask for expert opinion from other radiologists." And so she advanced herself in radiology and took on even more career options in radiology by becoming the residency admittance director. And the next person I interviewed in Children's Medical Center Dallas was Jennifer Veldkamp. She said to major in something interesting, and I thought her major was really interesting. She majored in art history, so her favorite part about the job was the visual aspect and problem solving. And her friend was actually there when I was interviewing her, and her friend said to be well-rounded and to volunteer in the hospitals, especially pediatric hospitals, if you want a residency at Children's. She also introduced me to this new term called academic radiology. I didn't know what this was before, but it turns out it's just the diagnostic radiology that they do at Children's. They sit in the room and use PACS to look through the scans. And then my last person I interviewed was Dr. Corral. He said to know what I was getting into with radiology because it can be taxing sitting there for a long time. But I thought that was really interesting, where you can just sit in the dark and look at a computer screen all day. I kind of already do that. He had previous mentorship experiences. He was a mentor to someone before, and he also had been mentored. And he is actually a neuroradiologist, so I thought that was really interesting. He does scans of the brain, the spine, and all the nerves. And he does interventional radiology as well, so he does fluoroscopy procedures and in like the spine and the nerves. So I thought that was really cool, and that was his favorite part of the job as well. So for my original work, I think I already, okay, thank you. Did I already explain it?